Just going to do this really quickly because I keep getting gaslighting for 9 years, which is why I've said a solicitor better get involved and I'm owed 9 years of damages. And every time I say that, the people that actually caused the damage who lied about me have turned around and said, oh, he's doing it for money. It's like, no, you're the one lying about me and denying me the truth and gaslighting me and causing trouble in my life. And I'm turning around saying, well, you've damaged my life, so you need to be arrested for this. Like my mother's deadbeat sisters. So I'll be very blunt and say my grandparents, so my mother's parents, and I can go into strong detail here. Mary Mahowski, my mum's younger sister, only become my nan's favourite after my mum married her second husband. Before that, she wasn't. Okay. Mum was both of her parents' favourite. All right. The oldest one, mum, was always Reg and Lola's favourite. That's why Nan used to drag herself around to everything that Mum wanted to do. Mum wanted to go to a horse show. Christ, Nan would go to Canberra Royal with Mum, and be in the freezing cold, staying in the back of a truck just to keep Mum happy. That's how much my Nan doted on my mother. My Nan only changed when she got with her second husband. So when my mother married her second husband, my Nan changed towards my mother because of her second husband, and rightfully so. Same with Pop. Now, Pop always said, Mum was his favourite. Robin wasn't. Robin thinks because she's a lowlife. I don't know. Robin definitely wasn't. Mum's sister. Pop couldn't stand her. And even as a teenager, he said he couldn't stand her. She went off to Bathurst with some guy, and I'm not going to get into details, but Pop told me all this stuff when I was living there in the year 2000. Anyway. So this is why Amanda and I were always Nan and Pop's favourite. Mum was also her grandmother's favourite. So Mary, my Nan Lola's mother, my mum was her grandmother's favourite, which is why we were always close to my big Nan and Uncle Fred. Mum was also closer to Nan's niece, who was raised by, it gets confusing, was raised by Mum's Nan. So, which is Sharon Newcomb, where the other two fat losers of my mum's sisters were closest to the deadbeat scum of Sharon's sister, which is the Colette, So there was always difference. So my grandparents and my great-grandmother and my great-uncle, that's why we always were affiliated with them, and we know their background, heritage, history. I affiliated with the families. I was the one. Seriously, no other family member went to those people's houses with my Nan. I did. I never saw Marianne there. Marianne wasn't at Auntie Margaret's funeral in 2003 in Balmain. Marianne never drove Nan to Tessa's house, which was just down from Birkenhead Point in Sydney, which is Margaret's sister, so Nan could go and visit Tess. Marianne didn't drive Nan around Bellevue Hill, which I did. Nan was showing me where she could talk off from where she got the stop for the tram was, where she got off from Leichhardt to Bellevue Hill. I did. Apart from that, so I'm just going to pin that in a minute there, because this is how the scum lowlife of my mother's keep carrying on. I was like, look, you're a scum lowlife. My mother only changed because she married her second husband. If my mum didn't marry her second husband, she would have remained the favourite of Nan and Pop, Big Nan and Uncle Fred. I mean, even though she married her second husband, she was still Uncle Fred's favourite and Big Nan's favourite. It's just that Pop was really, could never forgive her, he said. Reggie said, I can't forgive her for that. And Nan just couldn't believe that her daughter could, her daughter other than Robin could behave like that. So, yeah, Mum's behaviour, was like Robin's behaviour. We had to affiliate with them, but we didn't want to. That's the truth. Nan and Pop used to force them out, and we didn't want to affiliate with them. Anyone on Mum's side, except for Big Nan, Uncle Fred, Little Nan, and Lola, and Reg Pop, and our mother. That was it. Anyway, pin that, because I'm going to go to family documents so I can back myself up, so I'll stop getting gaslight. At Our Lady of the Rosary College, I did learn French. My teacher was Miss Davis. So Miss Davis taught French, but so did Miss Craig. Miss Craig taught French as well. Miss Craig was my music teacher. So here's the problem. People who didn't start Rosary College in year 7, they didn't learn French because they didn't start there in year 7. You learn French in year 7 and 8. Started at 1992, 1993. So I started year 7 in 1992, and I learned French in 1992 and 1993. If I wanted to continue that with my majors for year 9 and 10, I had to choose that as electives. There was other electives that I chose because I had Mr. Tryon for commas. I wanted commas. I had drama and had art. But look, that's the curriculum. You can see it there. And you can see I've circled. So if you actually go into your year 10 yearbook from 1995, you will see about 4 pages in, and I've got it in storage, it will list this. Here we go. So it lists all the curriculum, all what you studied. So what you studied at Rosary College. I mean, it's got all the teachers there. Let me see if I can... I hate using... I'm not using Apple. I prefer to use Apple. And so I'm using a Samsung. So I don't know if I can turn this around. Hang on. Oh, no, I was going to turn the camera around. I know on my Apple I can. I can do it this way and then turn it around. I'm fucking Samsungs. I hate Samsungs. And look, anyway, I've got on mine. So without being gaslighted anymore, so there's my yearbook and everything signed, blah, 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 whatever. I learned French at high school. Big deal. Sorry that the losers that didn't, that went to public schools. I went to a private school. That's not what I wanted to show. I open my documents. And years ago, Nan gave me a handful of birth, deaths, and marriage records to do with the family. And it's not, this information wasn't unknown to me. It wasn't like, oh, we'll go from birth, deaths, and marriages. No. This was information that was discussed to me and given to me by the people that raised me. So why wasn't it given to my cousins? Because my grandparents didn't like my cousins. So I would sit with my grandparents and they would tell me, said, oh, you do know that, you know, Mad Auntie May, which you used to call her, was originally Uncle Fred's mother, and Julia, Nan's grandmother, adopted him from May. Like, yeah. You do know that they lived in Bellevue Hill, so yes, and Annie. And the other thing as well, it's like Nan's cousin was, the last time I saw him in 2003 at Margaret Keegan's funeral in Balmain. He was still living in, I don't know if he still lives in, I don't know if he's alive. Gary Williams. Was still in Bondi. He's from Bellevue Hill. Now, here's the thing. Mum's cousin, Sharon Newcomb, knows this. So I keep saying, this is where my dad's side have got wrong information. Like, I had a conversation with my dad's side and they're like, oh, we're not from there. I'm like, I never said you did, because there's Williams on dad's side. My dad's older sister's name is Sharon, and her son... So here's the thing. Dad's older sister's name is Sharon, and she married a Williams. And I'm there going, God, you people are stupid. I didn't bring up dad's side. I'm bringing up mum's side when I talks about Bellevue Hill. And I'm talking about my grandmother's cousin. So Gary Williams is my nan's grandmother's sister's grandson. They're all from Bellevue Hill. And their name happens to be Williams as well. And when I talk about Sharon Newcomb, I'm talking about mum's cousin, my mother's cousin, Sharon Newcomb, who knows the house in Bellevue Hill because her and her husband Chick went there. One of the last ones that went there when Gary was moving. Actually, so did the copper. So mum's cousin who still lives in where they grew up in Leichhardt, or Balmain Leichhardt area. I don't know where he's living. I think he's still living in Leichhardt. But he remembers where mum, grew up or started her life in Mansfield Street, Roselle. And that's Brian, little Brian, because his father's Brian Sr., Brian Keegan Jr. He was the copper. He still lives in Leichhardt, and he remembers the place. He was about 10, I think, when Gary sold it, and because Gary's born and raised in Bellevue Hill, and then sold his grandmother's house and went to Bondi. But let me grab the documents. Okay, I need to put my glasses on. I can't see around them. For this. Oh, yeah, and that's the other thing. Oh, I can't believe people brought that up. It's like, well, Christ, I've always worn glasses, but you would never see me do it unless I had to read something, and I wouldn't do that in public because I hate the way I look in glasses. So I never even took him to school with me. I had to take him to Star Casino. I used to sit in my pigeonhole at the back of Star, but I wouldn't do it at the front. If I was on the desk, I was like, no, I'm not wearing my glasses. Too vain. So, years ago, I've got him here. All right, so Nan gave me, let's see, I've got more. I've got them all copied. Nan gave me all these documents years ago and said, copy them. Well, actually, she gave them to me, and I went and copied them and gave them back to her. So she said, take these before my daughters get their hands on them. Seriously, I wish I kept the originals now, because her daughters didn't even know they had them. So I've got, so I was the one. Nan gave them to me, and I went and took them to the copy place and got them copied. So I've got like Big Nan, my great grandmother's certificate of marriage, and so forth. So it's all, so everything I've actually said is backed up on birth, deaths, and marriage documents. It's like, here we go. Like, I brought up, okay, Nan's from Leichhardt. It's like, okay, God, people, why don't you just go off birth, deaths, and marriages then? You don't even see that. There we go. 90 Mansfield Street, Roselle, is where they actually moved in. That's where Pop was living. Nan's 43 Pop Street, Leichhardt. But Mum spent the first part of her life in Roselle. But what I wanted to show, that's not what I wanted to show. And I'm going to do this really short because Julia's death record. So the one that Nan gave me, this is going back years ago in the 90s. I want to know who actually requested it in 94. So this is it. This is the document from the 90s. Okay, this is of my Nan's grandmother's death record. Because I said to Nan, because Nan was going, she goes, Nan was giving me all these great photos of her when she was younger. And she goes, I told you I was beautiful. This is what her Nan used to talk. She goes, it's my high cheekbones. It's because I'm French, you know. That's what she said it. She goes, it is. And her daughter's always like, oh, Mum makes it up. It's like, your mum doesn't make these stories up. You guys are just drunken losers. And she was saying this. I'm like, oh, sure, Nan. She goes, Justin, I'm not lying to you. My great-grandmother was French. I'm like, okay. And then she pulled out the document from, so in the cabinet that went from the lounge room to the dining room, it was this old cabinet. In the middle cabinet, so in the far right was chocolates and chips and so forth. In the middle cabinet was a brown box. In that brown box had all the documents. And she pulled it out, she goes, there, my great-grandmother is Bridget Defrain, Defrain. Defrain's French. That's Julia's, which is Nan's grandmother's mother. She goes, I'm telling you the truth. That's where you think, and she goes, so this is obviously Nan was told, Nan knew her great-grandmother growing up. She knew her grandmother and her great-grandmother, and she said, Justin, Bridget's French. And growing up, I was always told my high cheekbones are from the French. So, why do you think my name's Lola? I was like, oh, good point. Because Lola's not really an Australian name. And her name's Lola May. May is because that is her grandmother's sister's name. So my Nan's grandmother is Julia. Julia's sister is May. And the other sister is Annie. So Nan said her middle name's May after her grandmother Julia's sister. But Lola is a French name. She said, that's why my name's Lola. It's Lola May. Oh, okay. And it matches the documents. It's like, oh, okay, well, you know, you're not lying. But we don't know where Bridget Defrain's from. I don't have a birth record. All I know is that, yes, on Nan's grandmother's death record, which is Julia Sayer, and Julia Sayer used to be Orion, it lists Julia's parents. And on that, it lists Bridget Defrain, her mother, which is who Julia's mother was, and Matthew Joseph Ryan, who Julia's father was. So Nan was telling the truth. So I thought, screw this. I should have kept the original document. So I actually copied. That's my copy of the original document from the 1990s, which I'll have to find. I'm going to ring up. On the back of it, it will say who requested it. Who's the one that wrote and requested it. Because when I've thought, no, stuff this, I'm going to go in and get a new one from recently. So I went and said, okay, here. This is my Nan's grandmother's death record. So I got one just recently done. There it is. And on the back of this, it says, who's the requester? Me, Justin Mark Fleming. So that's it there. And so I know where my family's from. I know more than my own parents. Here's the thing, being a gay man, which is fantastic, you don't have your own family to raise. So your attention seems like my attention was focused on work, so making money, and spending a lot of time with my family heritage. Like there was my family, like my grandparents, my great-grandmother, my great-uncle. My great-uncle passed away when I was in my 20s. So, I mean, that's what I was saying. Actually, here, let me grab another document too. I said this the other night. It's like, oh, you seem to all forget that we'll still go into, oh, my glasses on, fucking hell, to see Uncle Jack in Stratford before he died. And Uncle Jack's real name's not Jack. I think it's Matthew. That's what we used to do in the family. Hang on. Neil's death record. Oh, here we go. I'll grab this. Neil's birth record. So I've said that all my nan's children are born in, where is it? St. Margaret's Hospital. Here we go. The son of my mother's, there we go, Neil Anthony Purdy. This is my mother's brother who died before she was born. St. Margaret's Hospital, Darlinghurst, because all my nan's children were born in Darlinghurst. All except for Marianne, sorry. Marianne's the only one that wasn't. Here we go. And his death record. So these are the documents Nan gave me. And Uncle Fred used to do the same. I kid you not. So I'm a teenager going to Uncle Fred's in Leichhardt, which Big Nan lived there by then because Big Nan moved back home there in April 1989. And Uncle Fred was telling me about when he lived, he's from Bellevue Hill. And he would give me letters and stuff to hang on to. And my nan, so they're all the same. Little Nan, which is Lola, she was the same. She used to go, you take these documents, hang on to it before my daughters get hold of them. She was the same. Big Nan, Mary, my great-grandmother, exactly the same. Since I was a little kid, so we're talking about before April 1989, she's like, here, have you got a safe place you can keep this? I'm like, yes. She goes, put it away. Okay, and that's what they used to all do. Uncle Fred did the same. So you've got Nan did it, Big Nan did it, and Uncle Fred did it. They used to always give me everything to do with their keepsakes. Documents, photos, letters, you name it. I was their little favourite. There we go. That's, Balmain. So I've got this ridiculous crap that people were making up about our family. It's like, but we're all from the inner city. Here we go. So when Mum's older brother died, they were still living. So Mum lived in Mansfield Street, Roselle, till she was about 6. Okay. So we're not from where my mother lives now. And the thing is, all the family still lived in the inner city when I was growing up. So even after my mum moved, they still all lived in the inner city. So I grew up, and because I was closer to Nan and Pop and Big Nan and Uncle Fred. Oh, sorry, I'm full of mucus again. I spent more time with them going and visiting all the family that still lived in the inner city. I'm trying to find, because we used to always go to Strathfield to visit Uncle Jack, and I know I've got his records here, which is Matthew. His name is. We used to call him Uncle Jack. I think Jack might be his middle name, or actually may not be. I know it's got to be here somewhere. I've got all of them. Here we are, Uncle Jack. AKA, it is Matthew John Sayer. There we go. This one wasn't too good at making that out. So, Uncle Jack, and we used to do his father. There we go. Jersey Road, Strathfield. So, growing up, and actually, when did I was right. He died in 1983. I was only saying this not that long ago. I was on the phone to Mum's sister, and I was like, well, Christ, because they were talking about stuff. I was like, I was about 13, 14 when Uncle Jack passed away, and we still used to come down because after Mum moved, all our family was still in the inner city. So it was every second weekend, we were back home visiting family members. I said, we're still going to Strathfield till I was about 13, 14. Well, January 1993, he passed away. So I was almost 14 when he passed away. So there we go. And then the year later, I moved back home to Sydney. That's where people will make up this shit. They're like, but you didn't keep in touch with anyone from your high school? I was like, no, because I wasn't from there. And I didn't stay there and I didn't socialise there. It's a place my mother moved to and I really couldn't be bothered. And that's the reason why. When I briefly lived there, it was only briefly for those 6 years. Mum had just moved there, knew no one, all our family was doing a lot of family. Because they weren't dead yet, they were all still in the city, in the inner city, in the suburbs. We were always back home in Sydney, so I didn't really lay any foundations there. My foundations have been laid down in the city of Sydney. That's where my foundations are, in the city of Sydney. They're nowhere else. And this is the thing. I've been getting forced to be someone I'm not in the last 9 years. It's like, hang on. I've given you accurate information that can be, backed up with documents, and I've given you a good highlight of my life because, yes, Mum did move in April 1989, but I keep telling you, Mum moved, not me. Our life was very much back home in Sydney. And then I moved back home to Sydney. So my foundations are in the city, in the inner city. This has gone on for years. It's like, but you're causing me damage. And then it's like, oh, but you don't go out. I'm like, of course not. You caused trouble in my life in the last 9 years where I'm feel overweight. Now I've got health problems and all this shit. It's like, I don't do anything because you've just fucked over my life for 9 years. Gaslighting me. Anyway. And he was a bachelor as well, by the way, Uncle Jack. And Nan told me that she always said he was gay. I don't know, but we know Uncle Fred was gay. Reg Pop made very much known that you do know your Uncle Fred's gay, and your Uncle Fred's, you know, your Nan, well, Leo Patrick Sayer, and that's your Nan's uncle, and your Nan's uncle is my best friend. So yes, Pop. So then my best friend's gay. That's what Reg told me in 2001 when I was moving into Manly. February 2001, that conversation happened. So yeah, so there we go. And Field of Mars is buried at the Catholic Cemetery in Ryde. You see it. But yeah, so I've just been gaslighted for 9 years over this because people thought I was from the country. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. How are we from the country when no one ever heard about that area before 1989? So I'm not going to stand back and be gaslighted. It's like, I've given you really good details of my life. It's like, okay, Mum moved, but we were back home in Sydney the entire time. Like, our family members didn't start dropping until, you know, so we had so many families still in the inner city. Like, I was going, like, there we go, like Stratfield to see Uncle Jack. And like I said, I was spot on. He died when I was 13, 14, which I was 14 that April. Was it January? What date in January? Let me see that. Here we go. 17th of, 17th of January. 17th of January, 1993, he passed away. There we go. So, there. So, like I said, like, Mum moved, but the entire time we're back home in Sydney where our family's from. Like, Mum's born in St. Margaret's Hospital, Darlinghurst. So is her brother Neil, her brother Michael. They passed away before Mum's born. So is her sister Robin. So is her brother Denny. The only one who's not born in St. Margaret's Hospital, Darlinghurst, is Marianne. And as for when Nana Pop moved to Medowie, Pop told me that was his brother's house. His brother was living in King's Cross. He owned a place in Medowie, and they were saving up to buy a new house in Blacktown. So they moved because they said, look, back in those days, you couldn't give your house away in Balmain, Roselle. So they moved. They said it was a nice area, but the person who owned the house was his brother, Raymond Purdy. And they were only there for about a year, Pop said. I don't know. But Pop said, look, they were only there a year. We bought the place in Blacktown, and Nan's like, oh, it was beautiful. In those days, it was beautiful. She said it was, in the 60s, it was a brand new subdivision. We were like being the first owners. We were the second owners. The first owner had only lived there in the house for a year. So it was only built a year before they actually brought it. And they brought it off the first owner. So Nan felt really proud that she was no longer living in an old terraced house in the city. So that's how Nan felt. And I'm just going with the documents. I've always said, 1962. 6th of April, 1962 is when they moved there. And there's their address in Medowie. Fairlane Road, Medowie, where they were living. But Pop said that that was his brother's place. Something to do with his brother, Medowie. And they moved from Mansfield. They went from 90 Mansfield Street to Medowie for a year just to save money while they were to purchase the place in Blacktown in 1962. So it all checks out. Like, so what my grandparents told me, it all coincides with documents. So what even what my great uncle told me as a kid, I used to be going to bed, he used to tell me these stories about when he got done for being a spy. It was a joke. But then, hang on. So he did. He was taking photos. Here's the photos down here at Rose Bay, down from where he lived in Bellevue Hill. Here we go. So he did. So everything that I was told by my great-grandmother, by my great-uncle, So Uncle Fred, which is Leo Patrick Sayer, my great grandmother Mary, little Nan Lola, Pop Reg, all the documents actually coincide with everything they've said to me. That's the photos Uncle Fred was taking. So these photos got him in trouble because it was a military. It was a base down here. So where the Rose Bay Ferry is was actually a base. I've got them all from the military. Because I actually contacted him and said, okay, Uncle Fred was living in London at the time, but his original address where he's from is in Bellevue Hill, Edgecliff Road. There's the photos. I often get off the ferry and I just stand there staring at the water thinking of Uncle Fred when he lived here in the area and taking photos across the bay. And these are his photos. So he was taking photos of the seaplane landing. I've actually got further slides of these here. Okay. Now, what happened was his camera was confiscated. He had to prove who he was because it was military area in his air, so here it is. So here's where it was. So with all the details, I've got all the details in the letters. And Uncle Fred used to tell me this as a kid. So there's Julius Sayers' address in Leichhardt. Uncle Fred's address, that's where it is in London. So he would tell me these stories when I was a kid. And then I got older and I'm like, oh, I've got the documents, and documents match the stories that my great uncle told me. So technically, Uncle Fred was like, oh, they thought I was a spy. Technically, they actually did, if you read the letters, because he had to prove that he was for the military. He was actually, and there's letters going back and forth to, police headquarters in Sydney. He had to prove who he was. They was actually working for the Navy in London, in the UK. Hang on. Yeah. So I've had people who don't know me in Sydney, like Mark Henner, Stephanie DeSalis, and deadbeat losers of people, and they think that my family's from an area that they're not. And I'm like, no, my nan's house is 43 Piper Street, Leichhardt. My nan and Pop's house is in Blacktown, Kerry Road, but my nan's house is Piper Street, Leichhardt. Anyway, and it's all on there. You can see there's, Julia Sayer died in the house, 43 Piper Street, Leichhardt. I'm trying to find Uncle Fred's address in Bellevue Hill. On here, I know it's Edgecliff Road. So that's where my family's originally from, on my nan's side of the family. So my nana Lola, her side's from Bellevue Hill. Hang on. And I'm going to leave it at that, because how many times I have to be we're talking about some deadbeat people in Sydney that don't know their ass from their elbow about me, but make up stories because they think they know me. Here we go. Here's the full letter. This is from the military. And anyway, zooming in, it is number 33 Edgecliff Road, Bellevue Hill, is where my Uncle Fred's house was. So here's the thing. Oops, we're getting all the documents in the background. So here we go. All right. Uncle Fred, he lived in Bellevue Hill because that's where my nan's family's from. So Julia, my nan's grandmother, her sister May, and her sister Annie, they're from Bellevue Hill. Okay. Then they've moved to other areas, like for an example, they were involved in the racing industry. So they've all been involved in it. And I said this to Nan. I said, well, then where did Annie keep her racehorses? She said in Randwick. Now, I don't know if there's truth in that. I actually asked Mum's cousin, Sharon Newcomb, and Sharon said, oh, I don't know. She said, but I'll tell you that my mother, meaning her mother, Sharon Newcomb's mother, which was Nan's sister, Mari. Even though Sharon was raised by Big Nan, her grandmother, her mother was still Murray. When one of them, I think it might have been Jack, come back from the war, brought Mari a racehorse, Mari kept it across the road in Piper Street because the area was different then in the city. There were stables right through Piper Street and everything. There were stables, and I even brought this up to Mum's cousin. He said, Mum's cousin's younger than Mum. And that's the police officer that's still in Leichhardt, which is little Brian and Keegan. He goes, yeah, the stables are still there down the other end of Balmain. Because I said, Pop said he used to ride his horse down here where the ferry came in. He goes, yeah, stables are still there. The horse stables there. They just use this council storage area now. I'm like, oh, okay. So he wasn't lying. He goes, no, he wasn't lying. The stables are there. The stables right for us. And I'm like, well, I know that from when we used to keep horses in Moore Park for the show and the Nationals. So we're not talking that, it's not that long ago I was riding my horse around Moore Park So, and it's not that long ago, my grandfather had horses down in, bloody Harold Park Raceway, which is now a housing estate. So, none could have been telling the truth, but I asked the family members. The only family member would know would be Gary Williams, if his grandmother kept her racehorses in Randwick or not. But they're all involved in the racing industry. And back then, the racing industry was in Wellington. A lot of the racing industry they used to go there. That's why Nan was born in Wellington, in New South Wales. Her father was a jockey. Her mother was a seamstress dressmaker. But then they moved back home to Sydney, where they're from, and lived in the house in 43 Piper Street, Leichhardt. That house was owned by her uncle, Leo Patrick Sayer, Uncle Fred, and he had that rented out. So he rented it to his sister, or gave it to his sister to raise her family in, which is my great-grandmother, because he was living in Bellevue Hill, where he's from. And then when he got older, he left that house to my nan Lola. So to me, I've always said, my nan's house, because it was my great-grandmother lived in that house and my grandmother. So my great-grandmother raised her family in that house. So to me, I've always said that's my nan's house. However, the person who owned it is my great-uncle. So I don't see how that's so hard for people to understand. I was close to my great-uncle, close to my great-grandmother, close to my grandmother, and my great-grandmother died in that house. So the house was in our family since the 1930s to 1999, 43 Piper Street, Leichhardt. Uncle Fred and my nan's family, so the female side of my nan's family are all from Bellevue Hill. So you go, my nan Lola, my great-grandmother Mary, Mary's mother Julia, and Julia's mother's Bridget Dufresne. But then you got Julia's sister May and Annie, Bellevue Hill. And then I got gaslighting in the last 9 years. It's like, but I'm telling the truth. And why is this getting brought up now when it's a discussion that's been said my entire life? If you knew me, or, knew the relationship I had with my great-grandmother, my great-uncle, my nan and pop, I have all the documents. Like, this is common knowledge within the family. So if family members don't know this, they obviously weren't close to my nan, pop, Big Nan and Uncle Fred on the same level as I were. And how do you not know your family history? I mean, there's the other side of it as well, right? If you look through the Keegan side instead of the Sayer side, or if you look for the Ryan side instead of the Dufresne side, it's like, okay, so I'm looking for the female side, so which I was close to. So, Lola, so Nan, who's Lola Purdy, her maiden name's Keegan because of her father, Arthur Keegan, but her mother's a Sayer. So Mary, my great-grandmother, is a Sayer, okay? But then her mother, Julia, is a Ryan, okay, who married a Sayer, but her mother, Bridget, is a Dufresne who married a Ryan. So if you go Bridget Dufresne, then, Julia, so Bridget Dufresne, Julia Ryan, who married a Sayer, Mary Sayer, who married a Keegan, Lola Keegan, who married a Purdy, and go right through that line. They're all from the eastern suburbs of Sydney. So, and I grew up with them. So anyway, I'll leave it next time on this upload. But this is where I've been gaslighted as well. It's like, hang on, why you destroyed my family heritage and history? I don't do it to you. I've got a long heritage and history in Sydney, going right back from, even right through the inner city to do with my mum's father, because they're all city people. Reginald George Purdy, his mother Lillian Still, his father Keith Purdy, his grandfather, and so forth. They're all from the city, and I grew up with these people, and when I was young, they were all still alive. Like I say, it's not like these people were dead before, like when I was a kid. These people were well and truly alive when I was a teenager and in my 20s. So we're not talking, where other people don't have their ancestry around them, for whatever reason, maybe they've moved from countries to Sydney, and they didn't grow up with it. I grew up with my ancestry around me. Like I said, January 1993, Matthew, but I always called him Uncle Jack, or Auntie Jack, apparently I called him. I was a teenager before he died. So I grew up with all the greats, and, all around me. So all the people that are built Sydney, that are from Sydney, that are from the city and made Sydney and fought in the war to preserve Australia in heritage and history. All my family, I grew up around them. I was in my teens and 20s before they passed away. Other people don't have that. It's like, well, don't project your life because all you ever had was your parents. You're projecting your life into me. I didn't. I had great grandmothers, great uncles. great aunts, second cousins, third cousins, all around me growing up. I didn't just have parents. And I was the one that was closest to my nan Lola, my nan's mother Mary, and her brother Uncle Fred, Leo Patrick Sayer. I was the one that would drive them everywhere. So as soon as I got my license as a teenager, other people are hooning around with their friends. I'm driving Miss Daisy. Kid you not. I get my license. As soon as I get my P's, 17, and my nan's like, can you drive me here? I love doing it. So I used to drive my nan everywhere, all around the city. And that's what I was doing. Always did. Nan was here today. She goes, yeah. I was, at home like, oh, can you take me to go and see Tess? She's not far from Birkenhead Point. Like, we're here. She's not far from here. Like, I remember it wasn't far from Birkenhead Point where I went to, where Tess, which is Nan's sister-in-law, Margaret Keegan's sister, Tess. I was like, okay, and that's what I used to do. So don't call me a liar or deny me the truth when I know my family heritage and history. And you got arseholes making up stories about me. It's like, you're a deadbeat loser who calls yourself you're my friend, but you didn't even know me for a year. So I wouldn't say you're my friend. And I really don't throw the word friend around, because I've often always said, oh God, the only people I ever call my friends, it would be a family member, like a cousin. Strangers are just strangers. Be careful what you say, because friends change. So do family members. Anyway, so there's the truth. There's where I've been gaslighted. I'll leave it at that. So yeah, did learn French at high school, but when it comes to French heritage, Nan's always said it's her great-grandmother was French heritage. The rest of it is English and Irish. And as for Dad's side, I've already explained Dad's side. So I'm not going to keep doing this over and over. I want to see those people charged for defamation. If I was any other nationality, if I was any other nationality, the people would have been charged for discrimination or whatever. Like, if roles were reversed and I was doing it to people that were, let's say, Lebanese, Greek, whatever, there'll be charges. Like, why are we giving entitlement to so many people? It's like, and they want the, seriously, we're giving these people entitlement. It's like, sorry, when it comes to Lebanese, Dad's father, I'm not saying he's Lebanese, but I do have Lebanese cousins on Dad's side. But yeah, it's like, why do we have all these entitlements to people that think that they're entitled to slander and defame somebody for 9 years and they're not up on criminal charges? So anyway, so what I said was the truth. It's there. And it's there. You can see it with the other documents I've already uploaded. I'm not going to stand back and not fight because I've been gaslit gaslighting it's called. And it is defamation of character over a long period of time in two countries. And we're talking about people that just involve themselves in my life. That's like Stephanie DeSalis is one of them. Stephanie DeSalis, Belinda Jeffries, Mark Henner, some other people who knew me in Sydney knew of me. It's like, look, you know nothing about me. And I've had people, Sam Delati, it's like, oh, your mum's here. I've met your mother and I've met your half-sister. It's like, so what of my life? Not even a hair fracture. You know of my mother and the area she moved to from Sydney. And then you've met my mother's daughter from my mother's second husband. And that's your concrete foundation of saying you know me. That's not a concrete foundation of knowing anything about me at all. Just remember that.